The official sponsor for OnEducation's FETC 2019 coverage is Classcraft.
And in light of such awesome information, we decided we needed to enlist some backup for this ad so it was as rad as possible. And since we're all here at FETC, friend of the pod Steve Isaacs is here with us.
Steve, how many Classcraft quests have you made?
Glenn, my entire 8th grade course is comprised of Classcraft quests. Every activity.
Steve has made over 1 million Classcraft quests, and they're all amazing.
If you want to try one of Steve's million quests, we have an unreal deal for you.
In the history of best deals, this is number one.
From now until the end of February, OnEducation listeners can go to classcraft.com/OnEducation and use discount code ONFETC to get $16 off a yearly premium license.
But that's not all, right, Glenn?
Right, Mike. You'll also get a free class pack, which includes 2 posters and 48 stickers for all of your students and your classroom.
Free, you say? Steve, how good a deal is this?
Mike, this is the best deal I've ever seen.
Darn right it is.
So that URL again is classcraft.com/OnEducation. Use promo code ONFETC, get $16 off their subscription price, and get the class pack for free.
You can open a browser, keep listening, so get on it. Welcome to OnEducation's third and final FETC 2019 special episode. My name is Mike Washburn.
And I'm Glenn Irvin. Friends, we have an awesome pod for you today. We will recap the FETC conference, including our conversations with Piper, Mike's session on eSports with Steve Isaacs, and our treacherous journeys back home to the cold.
Treacherous is right. Hey, you know what? It's funny. I was talking to someone else that was in Orlando. I happened to come across someone, and they were complaining about the weather too. So it wasn't just us wishing it was a little bit. It was a little bit warmer. Apparently, someone said it was like the worst weather it's been in Orlando in like 6 months or something like that.
Wow,
just bad timing.
Yes, it wasn't too bad for us, but I mean, it was rainy and kind of. I felt bad for the people that were there for vacations.
Right, bad for Orlando, and certainly, yes, 100% felt bad for the people. Like we heard people at least at the place we stayed at, which was like more like a touristy, like super resort type place. There's obviously people from all over the world where we were staying.
Yes,
who probably were paying like a small fortune to be there, and it was pretty crummy weather most of the time.
Yeah, the
except
weather
for
was...
I guess Tuesday.
Yeah. No, yeah, Tuesday was pretty nice, actually. It was, especially in the afternoon. The sun finally came out.
Right. A lot of flights got delayed heading home, though.
Yes. Luckily, mine did not. Did yours?
Yes. Yeah. No, I was delayed 2 or 3 hours, but what was it? John Spike's flight got canceled.
Mm-hmm.
He might not even be home yet. Who knows?
Hopefully.
And then I got into a car accident.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Home. So kind of got driven off the road by obviously a very angry transport truck driver.
Wow.
So I think my car is pretty much written off, and I didn't get to bed until probably 7:30 or 8 o'clock the next morning. So I was up probably for 27 or 28 hours, 26 or 27 hours. It was, pretty rough.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But I guess, I mean, in general, I'll tell you, I every time I think about the accident, I forget about it and think about how awesome the week was. Other than that, everything was great. The accident, the car, and that'll all work itself out. We had a pretty rad week.
Yeah, a fantastic week. Lots of amazing people that we got to connect with, and the podcast obviously was doing really well. So yes, fantastic week.
And our table kind of ended up being like the hangout place for some people. They would just come and chill and sit, and even if we were recording, there was people that just kind of sat and worked or listened and laughed and smiled and nodded. Everyone was quiet, thankfully, and even the sound wasn't too bad at the table. So all in all, I mean, it was pretty fun. It was pretty cool. Hopefully we can lean into that kind of hangout table a bit at ISTE and make it more of a thing once we have a bit of better presence at a table, I guess.
Yeah, no, I mean, that would be fantastic if they actually had locations for the podcasts, because it did make a big difference just to have a spot where people could go to. And even if it was like ours was basically in the middle of a bunch of people, the sound was still pretty dang good for having a bunch of people kind of around you doing their own thing.
100%. 100%. So you left on Tuesday.
Yes.
And then Wednesday, I tell you, I wasn't expecting to be busy at all on Wednesday. Rami, my coworker, was with me, and we were planning on kind of walking the floor and looking at a bunch of things. I'm going to talk about one thing in a few minutes, but I ended up, Steve Isaacs just kind of randomly said, "Hey, do you want to get up on stage and talk with me about esports?" And I was like, uh-huh. It kind of worked out really well.
That's crazy.
It was pretty fun. I mean, we sat at the table and hammered out a Google slide for about, I joked with him, for about 45 minutes of prep work. I feel like we did okay. I mean, we know what we're talking about, obviously, but we literally just sat at the table and between like 2 and 2:45, we figured it all out, and then we went up there at 3 and just laid it all down. It was pretty sweet. There was a big, decent crowd too.
That's great. Yes. So esports conversation.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about, the groups and how you can get support if you're looking to start, and kind of we talked about Steve's roadmap and how he's kind of implemented it already. And we talked about kind of the roles that people can play in an esports ecosystem. The idea that not everyone has to be the actual video game player, which is a super, that's my favorite part to talk about, is that not everyone doing esports has to be playing the actual games. And in fact, there's tons of jobs and responsibilities. If you build out a proper esports ecosystem at a school, you can absolutely have so many different roles for people to play, something that touches kind of everybody and kind of captures almost everybody's interest. And that's an amazing advantage. And then we talked about the challenges, things that are, difficult, things that you may not even be thinking about. It's not just, hey, let's go play some video games at school. There's quite a few challenges. We talked about things even as complex as bandwidth, and devices. How are you going to get 20 Xboxes or 20 or 15 different PCs that can handle the games that we're playing? Not every school PC can play Overwatch, right?
No.
And
most of them can't.
Most of them can't. So there are so many logistical questions. We don't want to scare people off, but we did want to create realistic expectations. We wanted people to understand that it's not just about, saying, hey, I want to start playing video games at school or doing esports. There is quite a lot to think about. So hopefully we helped. We did share the Google slide. If you scroll through my Twitter feed, you'll probably see, or even in the FETC hashtag, you'll see where I posted the show or the slide deck. It's a bit.ly link. If you really want to see it and you can't find it, just send me a DM on Twitter and I'll hook you up with the link.
Yeah, absolutely. That's super cool opportunity and a great topic to be talking about.
So what else? So we walked the floor, Rami and I, and we came across what did you think of the floor? I'd love you to share your thoughts. Did you have any thoughts on the floor itself?
I think it was a typical conference floor.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of, going and doing the typical thing, which is I think a lot of teachers go to these things so that they can pick up the goodies, the pens and pencils and T-shirts and bags and stickers and whatever else it might be, which go for it. That's super awesome. I'm not a big fan of doing those things. The only the things that I like to do is if I need something or need to find out more information about a specific thing to bring back to our school. But it's a sales pitch. So, if you go to those things, that if you pick something up, you're gonna be told about a product, and if you have any clout at your school to be able to purchase things, you're really going to be sold on the products, because that's their big thing. As far as demonstrating those things and then being able to connect with their customers.
You seem pretty into what Nearpod is doing.
Yeah.
Especially the new stuff.
Yeah, Nearpod is always I think it's the best tool if you're going to still do direct instructions, which
Right.
a lot of teachers still do direct instruction for the majority of the time. So it's the best tool out there to be able to make sure that you have student voice in your classes. You can formatively assess very easily. So it makes it easy on the teaching side. Plus, it gives you data right away as far as whether students understand something or not. And it can be used on pretty much anything. So I like that too. Even the free version is pretty good. The paid version is even that much better. So lots of good things about Nearpod. I enjoy them.
Rami and I have been talking about a lot of different things. One of the things we've been talking about is just our office environment. So it was neat to kind of go around and get some ideas on how a good. We have this like big interest, and we've talked before about like teachers and classroom spaces for working. We've talked about that a bit before, but the other side of this coin is the collaborative working spaces for the actual for the actual teachers, like offices and staff rooms and stuff like that, and collaborative spaces. So Rami and I have been talking a bit about that. So it was neat to get some really interesting kind of layout ideas and furniture ideas that may help us, if we decide to remodel the office, which we're talking about. And that was cool. And the other cool thing I saw was, and they're really kind of new, a company called Piper. Now, PyTop was a sponsor of FETC. Their actual name was on the bag. The swag bag, and I have one sitting right beside me. I got a PyTop. So the PyTop is a laptop that and I was just showing Glenn. It's great for audio, guys. I'm showing Glenn on the camera, but show Glenn on the camera. You open up the keyboard and you can see the components on the inside, right? So you connect the Raspberry Pi and all of these things together, and it runs on a Raspberry Pi operating system. I mean, pretty sweet. So Piper is kind of, I guess, geared towards younger kids, and it has a similar idea. So it's kind of a maker laptop. And it's made out of wood. It looks really cool, like super neat quality. It folds up into like a really neat kind of carrying case. Has the same operating system, it looks like, as the PyTop has, this Raspberry Pi operating system, and you can use Minecraft in it, which is super neat. I didn't even know. Did you even know there was a Minecraft for Raspberry Pi?
I did, only because we had a Kano. Okay. I don't know if you ever have seen that. Basically, it was like one of the first kind of put it together computer systems. You put it all together, and then you connect it to a monitor, and it's its own computer teaching coding. And then it had a Minecraft component to it, nice. Which it wasn't real Minecraft. It was a coding version of Minecraft.
Interesting. Yeah. So yeah, there's Minecraft for Raspberry Pi, and it's built into this OS. And what I really liked about it, I think you might get a kick out of this. You would have gotten a kick out of this. They had a blueprint, and it was big. It was a huge, like, folded out. It was easily probably 4 feet by 5 or 6 feet big, huge piece of paper that you folded out, and it was kind of styled in like an engineering drawing. So it was blue, and it had the crisscross kind of grid, but it had all these drawings of how to assemble the Piper, and it was really neat to look at. Like, it would look really cool on your wall. And I was thinking about how, like, a teacher, especially like a computer science teacher, could like have that out on the wall, and it'd be really great as like a reference chart, just, how computers are made. Mm-hmm. It's something that even a computer science teacher, I never taught my students how to build a computer. And it's kind of a regret, to be honest. I said to the guys at Piper, I wish I had this 5 years ago, because to like show kids how to build a computer in the past, you would have had to literally like bring in a case and get some components and put it all together, and you had to make sure everything works, and you'd have to rely on people donating things to you, because just to go out and buy a computer to build and tear apart all the time would be expensive. So this was really neat, and I would love to have one of those big giant Piper schematic charts on the wall. I think it would be really cool in a computer science classroom.
That's a good idea.
It was really neat. It was really, really neat. I'll post a picture of it. I'm getting a Piper sent to me, and I'll post a picture of it when I get it, so you can see how cool this image was. They've got a curriculum and everything, so I was really impressed. I mean, it takes a decent amount to impress me, and this was super impressive. Really liked that. Anything else catch your eye? Anything else you're thinking about after this?
No, glad to be home. I mean, it's awesome to go to these things, but then it's also great to be back in the routine, even if it is freezing cold here.
So when we come back, we'll be talking to Ray Hughart from Teach Better Team and Michael Cohen, the tech rabbi. We're going to be talking about his awesome new book, so stay tuned. All right, welcome back to the podcast, everyone. We are joined by Ray Hughart from Teach Better Team. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm stoked to be here.
So, Ray, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Tell us your story, what you do, where you're from, all that cool stuff.
Absolutely. I'm a 6th grade teacher in Central Illinois. Actually, I'm a 6th grade math teacher. And in addition to that, I'm also the director of training and development for the Teach Better Team, which for me is a vessel to connect with more teachers.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're working on mastering personalized learning. Sometimes we're talking about tech integration. Sometimes I'm going into the teachers' rooms and we're talking about community stakeholders and bringing the community into the classrooms. But regardless of what we're doing, it's always fun to fill my schedule with great, passionate educators.
Sure.
And I always tell people, if you can imagine the teacher that really made an impact on your life, the one that actually taught you a skill that you use and vividly now remember as something that was valuable that you learned, I get to train those teachers. So it's very fun.
Very amazing. Cool. Yeah. So Teach Better Team does a ton. Like, you guys do a ton of stuff.
A ton.
And so let's do the elevator pitch on what Teach Better Team does, and then we'll dig into like more specifics.
Sure. So the Teach Better Team was founded by 2 incredible gentlemen, actually located in the Ohio area.
Okay.
And it was all because one of the gentlemen, Chad Ruskowski, was having the worst year teaching of his life. Wow. He hated everything about the classroom and essentially was in a position that I think many educators find themselves in, where they say either I need to leave or I need to change. And so he invented a mastery framework that allowed students to master content before moving forward. So he finally was finding a way to take flipped classroom and everything that teachers have been trying to do and put it in a framework that allowed it to work no matter who was running it.
Nice.
And then so they decided that they were getting a lot of questions. Everyone was asking him for training, and they said, maybe we should start a company. Long story short, they built this incredible professional development group for teachers. And I was hosting a Twitter chat, no kidding, a TLAP chat, and I bumped into Jeff Gargas on Twitter. And from there, we've formed a partnership, and now the Teach Better Team is essentially built on the pillars of helping teachers teach better, whether it be through mastery learning or community engagement. So,
man, that's awesome. So most of the listeners know that I'm a huge proponent of free resources, open ed resources, and teachers basically sharing with each other. So can you tell our listeners about everything Teach Better Team is doing when it comes to some free resources?
Everything. No, I mean, outside of the Twitter chat we do every week, outside of our podcast, we have a number of different areas on our website that we give teachers free stuff. Because the whole point is not to, make a buck, like you were saying. It's really just to share as much as possible that we can reach more students.
Fantastic.
So we have a free stuff tab. I think it's literally called free stuff.
It is.
It is. See, you've been on the website.
Yep.
And it has everything from, downloading how to do a retake effectively in your classroom to badges and everything in between. And then we actually just released, within the past year or so, Teach Better Academy.
Yes.
That has free online courses that teachers can take for credit in their district. And we have a ton on there already, and in 2019 there'll be 12 new courses that will be released this year. So
My goodness.
it's all just trying to, hearing what teachers need and getting them that support.
Those resources.
Yeah.
Yes. Fantastic.
Thanks.
So you guys also offer a lot of PD, and I'm doing a lot of PD now. So I was looking up what you guys do, and I love, and you mentioned like community engagement and stuff. I think that's super interesting. Utilizing social media in the classroom is super interesting. I'm fascinated with classrooms that use social media. My wife does a little bit. She used to use Vine a lot, actually, back in the day, taking little videos of her kids. But anyways, talk a little bit about the PD stuff that Teach Better Team does, because I think that's super important. We talk about PD a lot on the podcast as well, so... what are you guys doing there?
We do professional development on anything a district needs, to be honest.
Cool.
However, so in my classroom, it's a little strange. My students operate around themed internships sponsored by local businesses to learn their content. And it's all done in a mastery framework that allows them to move at their own pace. So when you break that down, that kind of comes into what we do professional development on. Sometimes with all together, and sometimes when you break down into those pieces, we do professional development on just small components. One is the grid method. It's a mastery framework that students can actually get the personalized learning that they need, and that's all scaffolded for the teacher and for the student. And what I like about it personally, when I was dabbling with it as a teacher, was not just the development of the lesson planning, that obviously is important, but then the implementation is a part of the training. So it's fun to be able to get into teachers' classrooms and help them do that. The other piece is our Teach Further model, which is the community engagement, where we're teaching teachers how to purposefully partner with stakeholders in the community.
That's amazing.
It's so fun. I mean, that's
so important,
my jam.
Underrated.
Well, and if you can imagine, one 6th grade student going through 25 themed internships, they're building resumes, they're collecting business cards. And we've had students, experience. We have students that have gotten their then job through the connections they made in a 6th grade math class.
Yes.
It's ridiculous.
It's funny you mention that, because I was literally just talking with Tisha at breakfast about students finding their passions and taking any sort of path to find your passion, and every student's passion is different. And so like a community engagement program lets students, like you said, 25 whatever multiple internships, lets them discover what they're into and then lean into that, right? But if you don't get that community engagement, you don't get that opportunity, and then you have kids that are being shoehorned into university and shoehorned into, like, they're doing, fine arts degrees when they really wanted to be a history major or something like that.
Well, and that's the whole point. You're trying to organically build in real world in a classroom. You have students that are never exposed to how to give a proper handshake until they're in college. So how can you organically embed eye contact and speaking in a proper tone into a math class? And the answer is, well, you can. You just have to frame it in the umbrella of purpose. So it's really fun, and I'm a huge proponent of not living in isolation. Our whole world is interdisciplinary, so when you can kind of bring that into your classroom, it's pretty powerful.
So podcasting is pretty fun.
Podcasting is fun.
So you guys have your own podcast. What do you think? Let's talk about the experience. So what do you think? What do you enjoy about We know what we enjoy about podcasting.
Oh, yeah?
What do you like about podcasting?
Well, selfishly doing what I enjoy, honestly, I am a talker. I can sit and talk on whatever platform they need. I had an IEP growing up, and reading is just such a struggle, but if you can let me talk about it, I'm in a good position. So Jeff Gargis and I started the Teach Better Talk podcast in August, actually, pretty recent.
Nice.
And just wanted to see what it would be like, and now I can't believe that we're connecting with incredible educators, to be honest. It's fun to hear everybody's story.
Yep.
Yes.
So
Awesome. Ray, this has been rad. Thanks for joining us. How can people reach out and get in touch with you guys?
Sure, I'm all over. At Ray Hughart on Twitter and Instagram. Facebook, we have an incredible Facebook group called Teach Better Team that any educator that's looking to dabble in anything mastery-based, anything we're working with community can join. And obviously the Teach Better Team is also the handle for our Twitter and Instagram for them as well. So plenty of good people to reach out to.
There you go. Ray Hughart, everyone. Teach Better Team.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, welcome back to the podcast, everyone. We are thrilled to be joined by second time appearance on the podcast for the Tech Rabbi, Michael Cohen. Welcome to the show, man.
It's great to be here. Excited to do this live.
Yeah, right?
Face to face.
So cool. Can you tell, for anyone who doesn't know you or hasn't met up with you, tell us a little bit about yourself, your story, what you do?
Yeah, so I never thought I'd be an educator, and I think it's important to share that because there needs to be more opportunities for that profession to be put out there as, have you considered this? You have a gift for helping others, for nurturing, for mentoring, and, to consider this. So I started, my professional, career as a designer. I was doing design, marketing, brand storytelling for nonprofits. And I taught a class at Fashion Institute in Los Angeles. And the students gave just this very unexpected feedback, which was, support helped me be independent, gave me the tools that I needed to really be able to solve the design problems on my own. And the head of the department, I guess, doesn't get that kind of good feedback from the professors, at least the ones that this was like their first 2 courses, ever teaching higher ed. And I fell in love with it. The idea that I could help, and more, I entered into the realm of education to the point that I became a director of education technology for a K-8 school, Harkham Hill Hebrew Academy in the Los Angeles area. And I had to really make a choice. Is this what I'm going to do? Is this my real calling in life?
Yeah.
And I kind of pushed aside the design and actually at a certain point abandoned it almost completely. Just focusing on, building my skills as a professional educator. I got a master's degree in education and just really trying to find ways to become a strong educator in every way that I could. And then I launched this brand, the Tech Rabbi, as I started to speak here and there at different conferences. People enjoyed it. But what they really enjoyed was my slide decks that were all, for the most part, hand illustrated, digitally illustrated designs with almost no bullet points on the slides at all. Right. And what resulted in that was me realizing, maybe I went to art school and pursued this career in design because I was meant to infuse that into the world of education. So I blended the two together to the point where I was able to, reflect on 10 years in the world of education and write a book called Educated by Design. Yeah. And now we're sitting here together.
So let's talk about the book. And I actually think it would be great to talk about the process, because I have an interest in this and I do some writing myself. What did you feel about, how do you feel about the process? What did you enjoy about it? What was that experience like?
So it was unlike anything I'd ever experienced before. Really, in the beginning, I wrote a lot of content. I think I had about 30,000 words put together.
Wow. Okay.
And I was pretty proud of it. It was, this, ed tech innovation, I submitted it to a couple publishers. Some didn't even respond to me. And, Dave Burgess, who, is now my publisher, so it's a cool story to tell. He turned down the first manuscript. Really? He said, it's really great content, but it doesn't really have you in it. It could be replaced with any expert, in the ed tech space. And I had to really sit back and, practice what I preach. I talk about failure as, first attempt in learning, unless reflection exists. Like I have to reflect. I have to figure out what's right here, but what's wrong. Yeah. And I bought a book about how to write a book.
That's great.
Which was a pretty funny. That was January 2017, so two years ago. Okay. And I saw that there was a process of really putting together a vision for the book, and less about write a great book. And so I followed that kind of process, and it was great because I have a background in marketing. So the sticky, the vision, like what's the mission statement of the book, who's your target audience, all these things were just very comfortable. But I had to articulate who is the person when I close my eyes is holding my book, because I have to write it for them. And if 20 other different types of people also want to buy the book, that's great. But I have to be like laser focused on who that person is. So in October, he accepted the second, round of it. It was more about like the creative process. I didn't yet have a title or really know like the full vision of it.
Yeah.
But I started writing, and I started to build out these 10 principles. And, some people wanted it to be the 10 commandments because I'm a rabbi, but like, there's already one set, and like I'm good, So I did, just 10 principles of building creative capacity. I read a book by Dr. Tina Seelig, who I was so grateful that she was one of the main endorsers of the book. She has a number of books on creativity that I recommend all the listeners read, especially What I Wish I Knew When I Was 20.
Okay.
And in one of her books, she writes, like, who am I to write another book about creativity? And I realized, like, I can't write another book. I have to write my book.
Yeah.
And so I got through this process, and I submitted, in April of last year, what would be, the working manuscript.
Yeah.
And I felt like this was good, a good couple hundred pages deep. And it's got, I had all these plans for my illustrations to be put into the book. And I then started this new journey of editors and copy editors and proofreaders.
Yeah.
And really people that understand how to shape a story in an incredible way. And this book is still 100% me.
Yeah.
But it was like sculpted.
Yeah.
In a way that was incredible. I mean, it was an incredible team.
Yeah.
Aaron Casey and the Writers Connection, they do a number of books.
I looked her up right away. As soon as I looked in the inside of your cover, and I was like, who did some of this?
I mean, even I share in the unboxing. I wanted, I'm into standing out. It's hard to blend in with, the giant beard, the paint splattered kippah, So I went with a square book because I didn't see so many square books out there. Austin Kleon is one of the books that, as an author, one of his books, Steal Like an Artist really inspired me. And his book is square. So I was like, I got to look at this.
Yeah.
And what the editor saw was, what if we keep the square, but we create a really great margin for people to take notes in?
Yes.
And I was like, that's genius.
Yeah.
So I shared in my unboxing video, like, check out this margin, like, use this margin
for notes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So it was a cool kind of thing. And then like even the layout, I did not want to write a textbook. I did not want to write a book that is blocks of text from page, XII all the way to 200 whatever.
Yeah.
So that was a journey. I had to give up a lot of creative license, and because I had to do it, not because they were forcing me. Like I had to let go. Even the cover, all these elements are my hand-drawn elements, but I didn't design the layout because it would not be printed right now if I was designing the layout. I would still be like, this is.
You have an illustration that says perfection is
the enemy of done. Yeah. So it's easy to draw that illustration, but to actually let go of certain times, I'm far from perfect. It was hard to do that. And even in the layout, like coming up with ways of creating different, little graphic marks, like a line underneath the title should be like a hand-drawn strike versus just a 0.2, thick line that goes across, So a lot of those things, and, then the drawings themselves, are just... everything came to life, but it was a process. It was not something that just, okay, we're in a Google Doc and like throw it into InDesign and call it a day. There was a lot of care, a lot of reflection, a lot of helping me, be more concise, challenging me to expand, and just organizing it in a way that had a beautiful flow.
Awesome.
So I've highlighted the book several places, but there's this quote here where you state, somewhere around the age of 6, the current education model begins to purge students of creativity, curiosity, and wonder. And then you talk about inquiry-based learning, and it's something revolutionary where it shouldn't be revolutionary. So my question is, tell us more about like inquiry-based learning, how can we bring back creativity, curiosity, and wonder into our classrooms?
Yeah, I'm glad that stood out, because I was hoping someone would articulate it the way that you did. It's this idea that all innovation is driven by inquiry and curiosity, and it's a person who is sitting either by themselves or they're with a group of people and they're trying to discover something. But for whatever reason, the machine of education has created this like system where inquiry is like delivered to you without the inquiry part.
Yes.
Of that curiosity. So it's like search and discover, research and analyze. But like, what about like using the energy and the engagement of my own interest and wonder? And I think that, like even I hear people talk about like the Montessori, method, right? Which is all play-based, inquiry-based. Like I've yet to visit a Montessori high school. Right? Because at the end of the day, it's like, okay, we got to get these kids into college, because college is the gateway to that career, to that success, and we have to do that. So you can't sit around and play and be innovative and you're like, do whatever you want in high school where
when
the students
need an
are...
awesome SAT score.
Yeah, So what happens is that like it's gone. But I think that there's ways to bring it back in bite-sized, types of ways. So a teacher that really has a control over their curriculum, a veteran teacher, they, I think, have the luxury, and it's just time. It really is. So young teachers, any teachers that have, been in this profession for less than 5 years, keep at it. It gets easier. But once you start to see that scaffold and that workflow, then you can start to kind of risk tying a little bit more open-ended, creative type things into that curriculum, but not worry about those standards suffering. Because at the end of the day, I work in a private school. I have that luxury. Many of my colleagues in the public space do not. And testing season is either around the corner or already here. Yeah. And you got to get that information. But there's still ways to do it where you come from the vantage point of the student and like, what do you wonder about in this topic? And I was sitting once in a class observing a teacher, and the quadratic equation, right? High school math class. And one of the students said, where did this formula come from? And the teacher is like, I don't really know, but like right now we're just doing the quadratic formula. Yeah. And I'm like, no. And like, I'm the fly on the wall.
That's a missed opportunity.
And it's so, I'm not the type of administrator to observe and then speak out. I think it does a disservice to the teacher. It throws them off. It creates a weird dynamic. So I'm just here. I'll share later. Yeah. So I sit down with the teacher and I say, I just wanted to share something really interesting. We work in a Jewish school. It's a Jewish high school, dual curriculum. And you should know that there was a Jewish mathematician that was in North Africa and Egypt and took the quadratic equation and brought it to Europe.
Wow.
So that is a teachable moment that should be interesting and intriguing and allow for something deeper to happen. Like, why is he bringing that? Like, we're bringing the quadratic equation because it's in a textbook and there's an SAT question. Yes. Okay, he brought it for a reason of solving problems and curiosity. Like how did we get from there to here? So you could bring it with like Genius Hour, 20% time. There's ways to bring it where it can be totally open-ended. Yeah. Let the students thrive and struggle. Or bring it intentionally into the curriculum when it works. But you have to feel confident that it won't disrupt that proof of knowledge, evidence of knowledge that the students are going to need to be accountable for.
That's awesome. So we've talked about this before when you were on the show before, but I don't think we can talk about it enough. The idea of educators as designers. We all agree that educators should absolutely see themselves as designers and lean into that even more than they are. And there's educators that don't lean into it at all. Speak to that just a little bit.
Yeah. It was one of the biggest breakthroughs for me, where I was able to realize that I didn't have to abandon one or the other, that they work together. At the end of the day, a designer is somebody that understands people and is trying to solve some sort of problem for them. That's what a designer is. And so you could have all these different branches of design, but at the end of the day, I understand people. And the designers that don't, they either have to be absolutely incredible at problem solving, and then somehow like they just succeed and they're miserable because they have a horrible client designer relationship, or they just like are so good that they become like, you know, the designer of, you know, some famous logo that, you know, goes down in history, like the Shell logo. Like you look at that on a pin and you know what it is. Yes. There's no question, right? But for educators, looking at ways that they can connect with the design world and see that layout classroom design, lesson design, presentation design, the way in which you design the support for an individualized student. All of these things happen outside of the world of education. And I'm always about tapping out to bring it back in. And I think that once we understand the vernacular of, okay, so classroom design, interior design, IBM has a massive design thinking laboratory that's all about how do you design corporate space. And this like open office, it failed. That's not my opinion. That's like researched and now published, like Business Insider. The open office platform that was supposed to promote collaboration has failed because there's no personal space. There is no private space. And it just becomes this just, you know, like washroom whirlpool of like people, right? So there's ways to connect it. And I think that once we see ourselves as educators as these different micro designers in each thing, because we do so much. It's not like, there's a bunch of kids in the room and I'm going to deliver this information. They're going to memorize. They're going to take a test. There's all this dynamic. And the more technology advances, the more that society is offered new opportunities, we as educators, we have to evolve. And we have to really look at how can we design different opportunities for our classrooms.
Awesome. So good. Where can people buy the book? Where can people reach out to you? How can people connect with you?
Awesome. Yeah. So the book is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and they can get it there. There's also, a couple book signings here and there. I'm here at FETC, which I know you guys are really quick, but probably won't be released by tomorrow afternoon. I guess I won't hold it against you. But I'm going to be at ICE in Chicago in February. So I have a series. They can connect with me on my website to find those face-to-face opportunities. The Tech Rabbi everywhere.com, on social media, whatever platform it is. Even if I don't use it, I've taken the Tech Rabbi just in case.
There you go.
And just really excited to connect with both of you, excited to connect with your audience. Yeah. Twitter is the best place to build those conversations, ask those questions, and just collaborate together.
Awesome. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks,
My
Mike.
pleasure.
Thank you very much. Michael Cohen, everyone.